If everyone could grab their last coffee and sit down, please. We'll get started into cybersecurity and talk about how we manage risk, protect data, and thwart threats. So I'm going to turn it over here to Brendan Travis, who's going to do the introductions of our moderator and panelists, and we'll get into it.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Dan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brendan Travis. I'm here representing Sage Data Security. We are a cybersecurity firm located down in Portland. We work with a number of different healthcare organizations supporting really every phase of their cybersecurity lifecycle. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience today. It's nice to see everyone under one roof. And we're really excited today to support the program, to act as a sponsor for this chapter event. And it's my honor, obviously, to be introducing our distinguished panel today on a topic that's near and dear, I think, to all of us, cybersecurity in the healthcare industry. So with that, moderating our session today, we have Tony Luciani with Wolf & Company. I'm going to kind of stick to the script here just so I want to do everyone justice. So, Tony is a supervisor in Wolf's Information Technology Assurance Services Group, where he's responsible for managing and delivering information security, risk, and vendor management services for his clients in a variety of industries, including financial, educational, software, and healthcare sectors. He is also responsible for ensuring quality work and timely completion of projects to clients by staying up to date with industry developments. And our panel, the experts, we have Robert Rivas. Robert is the Oxford Networks Vice President of Data Center and IT Solutions. He has over 20 years of information systems and operational experience in telecommunications, healthcare, and manufacturing industries. And prior to joining Oxford, I guess Rob served as Director of Technical Services for Central Maine Healthcare, as client executive for CareTech Solutions, and prior to Central Maine Healthcare, he held leadership, network engineering, and systems engineering roles in the semiconductor field. And as Vice President of Data Center and IT Solutions, Rob oversees all data center and IT solutions operations, as well as implementation of cloud and emerging technologies. Welcome, Robert. To Robert's right, we have Barb Armstrong. Barb is the Director of Information Security and Information Privacy and Security with Maine Medical Center and Maine Health. Barb has been working in IT security and privacy professions in one form or another for over 25 years at several New England-based organizations. Her experience includes work with payment card industry standards, healthcare privacy, and many aspects of information security, technology, and management. Barb currently works at Maine Medical Center and oversees a cross-functional team of privacy and security professionals supporting and working with Maine Medical Center and other Maine Health member organizations. Welcome, Barb. And to Barb's right, we have, last but not least, Michael Cakeley. Michael's the Information Security Manager for Maine General Health in Augusta. He joined Maine General Health this August, and Michael is originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, and attended UMaine, earning a BS in Business Administration in 2006. He also earned his CISSP certification in 2013 and completed his Master's in IT Management from Webster University in 2014. I think Michael actually currently resides in Gardner with his four-legged feline, Clark?
Clark, got it.
Wanted to make sure we got a shout out to Clark in recognition there. So with that, welcome panel. Thank you for the opportunity, and I will turn it over to the experts.
Thank you, Brendan. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Would you rather be anywhere else than to be here talking about cybersecurity and healthcare? Really?
No.
And there's a few things, just be a close second. So why are we here? Why is cybersecurity so important in healthcare? Well, frankly, American healthcare is under attack. And IBM dubbed 2015 the year of the healthcare breach. Every day you hear about new attack vectors, from ransomware to phishing emails to social engineering attempts to insider threats. So, you know, what can we do? And this is why we have the cybersecurity experts here to pick their brains a bit and understand their methods in healthcare. And healthcare, as you guys know, is such a complex environment. So, you know, I'd like to kick off this discussion and ask the panel about ransomware. You don't really need to be a security expert to know what the impacts of what ransomware is. So, as for the panel, I'd like to ask, what are you folks seeing and doing as methods to protect and fight against the threats to ransomware?
Good morning. Yes, still. Good morning, everyone. Oh gosh. Okay, this brings me back a little bit. Rock and roll. From a ransomware perspective, I know you hear the term ransomware, and it isn't one size fits all, and there isn't one, oh, I'll put in, you know, the red thing, and that will stop all ransomware. Excellent, good plan. I think in tackling a lot of the security issues, it isn't about tackling, you know, I'm going to put this one thing in or this one piece in. It's actually the defense in depth. So it's a lot of things come together, and they have to work right. Now, the ransomware guys, they only have to get it right once. We have to get it right every time across all of the different spaces. So this topic usually takes about 2 days. How much time? Okay. At a high level, what we look at is we have to look at it holistically, similar to a patient, and we look at patients holistically. This would be, what are all the pieces? So you start with our user, and that user gets that email, and it looks really convincing, and if they just click on the link, all of their problems will be solved. Sometimes emails lie. Sometimes links aren't very nice. And so having that user think twice and be suspicious and be skeptical and not click on, don't click on it, don't click on it. You can't be there to coach them, but giving them enough tools so they can hopefully make a good choice. So that's just an initial piece. Because ransomware doesn't, in general, it comes in because, or it starts because of a bad choice, a bad configuration, or a bad something. But in a lot of cases, what we see is these start with the user, smart user, well-intentioned, just maybe making not the best of choices. And then you look down at desktop, what's your device settings? Some EHRs, and I think a lot of you probably are familiar with which ones are, they require local admin on the desktop to be able to work. If you have somebody that has local admin that also has a predisposition to clicking things, we've got a potential problem here. Moving down to that, looking at what kind of software you have to maybe detect, ideally to prevent. So antivirus software, I think it's been touted for the past 10 years or so, oh, antivirus is dead. Well, you still actually need it, but it's only catching about 5% of the more mature types of malware that comes in. So 5% is kind of a low number if you think about it. So it's looking at what do you have for preventative, so that even if they click on it, maybe it will stop them from a bad choice having an impact. Then you kind of go down to the next level, file security, backup recovery, account settings, server settings, whether you have replication, HA. And I've gone into a lot of tech speak, but I guess you have to, kind of summarizing it back, looking at the full stack and going through the process and doing the best you can with the architecture you have, and then always round back to that end user.
Why not?
My idea.
Why not?
Sure, I'll take it. I guess, first off, does everybody know what ransomware is? Is there anybody that doesn't know what ransomware is? I guess just
Raise the hands of who knows what ransomware is. All right.
Someone who doesn't, we can send a link.
Yeah. Just click here.
That was humor.
Personality and information security, what? So yeah, I guess just in case there's somebody out there that doesn't, so ransomware is basically a form of malware that once it's on your hard drive, it'll encrypt everything. In order to get the password to get your files back, you need to pay a ransom. So fairly basic in a sense. So I guess taking lead from the political debates last night, at Maine General we use the red thing.
It's your 2 minutes, sir.
Fair enough. Right. So, like Barb was saying, the defense in depth thing is really kind of key. Training is a huge piece of it, just because that's the primary vector that ransomware is going to come in. Kind of go into the common phrase these days, not if, when. I think one of the other things that I plan on working on implementing at Maine General, I've been there for 2 months now, so made some progress in the training aspect, but starting to work on the policy and procedure side, is, incident response is a key thing, and so actually developing a ransomware response, having a specific incident response plan for that particular event. Another thing that Barb kind of touched on as well with the local admin was also the access control. So yes, the local admin rights would be able to let the executable execute and do its thing. There's also ransomware can spread, and so what it can basically do is use the user's permissions. So if you have access to certain shared drives or network resources, if your account has those permissions, ransomware can use that to encrypt shared drives and other things. So looking at who has access to what information, just getting back to the basics of need to know and least privilege. If you can really take a look at what your users have access to, you may be able to prevent the spread of ransomware if somebody, executes it and their account doesn't have permissions to that shared drive. Other thing, endpoint protection, like she said, down to the individual client level, but also like Barb said, it's not going to protect you all the time. There's new variations of it coming out. I forget what the statistic is or how many different pieces of malware and ransomware are creating on a daily basis that are unique and different, but it's a pretty insane number. I'm not sure if you have that number in your head.
My about a month old now, but there's tens of thousands coming out, variants.
Yeah, so about 10, yeah.
What stats?
Yeah, so approximately 10,000 different types of malware and ransomware that are unique coming out every day. So to think that your McAfee or Symantec or Sophos is going to always be up to date and be able to stop those things is kind of ridiculous. One of the other things that we do at Maine General is email and web filtering. So trying to filter out this known websites that are malicious. And then same thing with emails, using those technical controls to prevent known malicious domains from sending emails into your network. Another thing that I'm working on, thankfully Danny, my boss, has been very receptive to this, is adding the, what's the right word here? I guess adding the word external to the subject line of emails that come from outside the Maine General network. Since primarily ransomware is going to come from outside your network, if you can help the users by identifying those external emails, then not all external emails are going to be malicious, but if you can at least tell them, hey, if it's got the word external in it, you may want to start thinking twice before clicking links or opening attachments. Another technical thing that I've seen before that consider implementing is as far as blocking macros, because that's another form that ransomware can come in as is email attachment, and whether it's a Word or Excel document with a macro running in the background. So if you disable macros for attachments coming from outside your network, it's another option.
I probably don't need this, if anybody that's ever met me. So, I think to add to that, ransomware is a really interesting thing. So 10 years ago there wasn't ransomware, right? And then somebody along the lines figured out that rather than, back in the day what you would do is you get into a company and you delete their data, right? That was like the big thing to do, and it was really interesting to some organizations, hackers and whatnot. Then they got smart and realized that there's money to be made on data, right? So I think a lot has changed in the last 3 to 4 or 5 years where people have decided that I don't really want to make your life that difficult, just difficult enough that you can't do what you need to do on a daily basis. And ransomware is a great example of that. Pay me to give you your data back. And then in a month, you'll be paying me again. I forget the police department here in the state of Maine that had ransomware, all their files, right, for cases were encrypted, and they had to pay $7,000 or something to get it unencrypted, because without it, they couldn't get back to business, right? When you're stuck and you're dead in the water, you'll take any option. So you tell everybody, don't use your credit card at a website that looks questionable, right? That's what you, and everybody knows that now, right? It's almost second nature. But you'll pay a hacker who's encrypted your device and your files. Gleefully, you'll do it because you need that data back. So preventative behavior is a large part of it. You know, the emails and don't click on certain websites. If you got something from somebody and you think it's from them, my favorites are the Hallmark cards, right? Hey, Merry Christmas. Those types of things. Even the most small, little innocuous things can be a much larger problem if you're not really paying attention. So an example I'll give is, a long time ago when I worked in the semiconductor business, there was a security guard in the front of the office who was dating a girl in, vice versa. She was a security guard, he was in IT. Her name was Melissa. Does everybody remember the Melissa virus from way back, or is anybody familiar with that?
Yep.
She sent him an email that said, I love you. And so he opened it, and there was a little attachment, and he clicked it. And soon brought down the entire Exchange environment for about 12,000 users. He didn't mean to do it. He wasn't trying to be malicious. He wasn't looking to cause a problem for anybody. But that behavior of clicking on things instantaneously is built into us, right? So train your users not to just click and then think later. If it looks suspicious, it probably is. Pick up the phone, right? Call IT, call your help desk. I got this email that looks a little questionable. What do I do with it? The last thing an IT guy wants is to say, to hear you say, I clicked on it like 4 times and nothing happened. Right? I don't.
So I shared it with my department.
So I sent it over to Barb, and she says she can't open it either, right? And she sent it to somebody else who sent it to somebody else. That's the last thing anybody in IT wants to hear. Education is a really large part of keeping yourself safe. Disaster recovery and business continuity planning are also a large part of that. It's not if, it is when. There was a statement made by the government one time that there are 2 types of companies in the United States: those that have been hacked by the Chinese and those that don't know they've been hacked by the Chinese, right? I believe that to be a true statement. Most people who are intelligent about these types of things don't let you know that their presence is there, and they're not going to raise a red flag and say, I'm back here stealing your data, or I'm encrypting your data, or making your life difficult. They want to be unseen, they want to be unknown. So when you get these types of things, if you don't react fast enough, a disaster recovery plan is going to be key to getting you back up and running. How many people in here in a hospital could be out of business for 4 days without patient records? You'd go back to paper, but you wouldn't want to, right? You don't want to be in that position. And then I was talking to a couple people at the table earlier. I liken it to a hospital having an issue with a baby. If you lost a baby, would you go to that hospital? You may not, right? Because you think to yourself, I can't trust them to keep that safe. For me, it's really the same thing. If I can't trust an organization or a hospital to keep my data safe, should I go back there? Is more of my data going to get out? So doing everything you can to make sure that you can be preventative, then get the data back, and then obviously, get it back up and running, get people back to their work is key.
To piggyback off that is ransomware is a type of malware, and it's a computer security incident, which stresses the importance of a disaster recovery plan, incident response plan. So, like what you said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So you want to make sure that incident response plan, DR plan, isn't you take it off the shelf that's been there for 6 years, dust it off. You want to make sure that it's being active. So the next question for the panel is, what is considered a comprehensive incident response plan? What should go into an IRP DR plan? Should it include testing? What should it include? What should be included in it?
Starts?
Sure. People, planning, information, data, all of that stuff needs to be in there. People don't test DR. How many people here have a DR plan? Come on, some people have a DR plan. How many people here have actually tested their DR plan? See, I saw the shrug, right? So, and how many people here have actually flipped over to their disaster recovery environment to confirm that their data is actually there and working? 1, 2, actually I know one of them right there. I know one right there, right? That's a very small amount of people. It's the way the business works. You get busy doing other things. Your job is to take care of patients, right? To provide, for the patient. Some things they take the back, the burner. I think having a really good plan is key, and making sure that not only do you have the backups available or disaster recovery, but the people to bring those systems up. If your main systems engineer just happens to be in Jamaica this week, and he's the guy, right? We all have one, right? He's the main guy, right? He's not around. Well, Barb used to take care of that all the time. She was the one that worried about that, and she's not here. What are you going to do? You're going to be stuck in the water. So testing, plans, unannounced tests actually are one of my favorite things now in my new role. I go in, I see my engineers, I tap them on the shoulder and say, guess what, today's DR testing day. And they all hate it, right? But then it shows me and it shows them that we missed 3 or 4 steps, and there's a couple things we didn't do right, and we need to fix those problems. So I think really having that comprehensive plan and knowing what you're going to do when it actually happens. I like the statement, you take it off the shelf and you dust it off. A lot of businesses do that. Healthcare is not alone in that. A lot of businesses have that. We did it 8 years ago. And business continuity. So I say it all the time, business continuity and disaster recovery are not the same thing. A lot of people just think they're looped together, but they're not. So business continuity is, again, the engineering staff. None of your engineering staff can get into work today. It doesn't matter how many backups you have and how many systems you can that are able to be brought online. If the guy that's smart enough to bring it online isn't available, what are you going to do? So having those backup plans is key. And if your data is encrypted by ransomware, you're going to need that plan, right? You're going to need something to go back to.
Sure.
So,
So yeah, I have I guess I agree with everything Robert's saying. In addition to that, one thing that I try to do with my incident response plans, I was in the military before, and I flew helicopters, and so one of the experiences I had was there was a sister platoon of mine that would go incredibly in-depth into every single aspect of mission planning and have every little detail planned. I'm a little more laid back, so me and my guys, we tend to take a little more casual approach to it, be a little more vague in our planning for what we were going to do that evening. As you can imagine, when you're flying helicopters and you're in Afghanistan or wherever, the mission can change and emergencies can happen. And so you have to be flexible. And so that was one of the biggest things that I've taken away and brought with me is that, yes, you can have the greatest plan in the world, but if the emergency or the disaster doesn't occur exactly how you planned for it to occur, which it probably never will, you're not going to be flexible, and then everybody's going to run around like their hair is on fire and not know what to do. So I like to be specific in different ways, I guess, as far as incident response. I think one of the key things is identifying the correct people. Identify, the right people with the right background that can do the right things. Like he was saying, be prepared for when those people aren't around too, and have those backups. Because the primary thing is going to be those people. I mean, we're going to be the ones responding to it. You can have all kinds of technical stuff in place, but if you don't have the right people to respond in the right way, kind of dead in the water. Like you were saying, you can have all the systems online, but if you don't have the people there to actually manage it and take care of things, then what good is it? So that's one of the biggest things for me is, even though it sounds very counterintuitive, I like to try and stay vague in some areas so that you still have flexibility for people to react and respond appropriately, just because it's not always going to be what you planned it to be. I know at Maine General, one of the things we have is we have our incident response is also incorporated into our disaster recovery plan, which I like. The testing piece, spot on. It's almost terrifying to think about the testing of it, because if you haven't tested it, you really don't know what's going to happen. And if you're dealing with a live production network and you have clinicians that are trying to do their jobs and then all of a sudden they're not able to do their jobs and you're the reason that now you're basically executing your own disaster recovery plan because you failed at doing a disaster recovery prior tabletop, it's, yeah, that can be a little bit embarrassing and kind of stressful. But I think it's one of those things where you really, start slow. Start with a tabletop of maybe just IT people. Next time involve some of the business owners and the clinicians. Next time bring it into, maybe not the live network, but test network before you take it to production. So yeah, just kind of build on it. I think the biggest thing is a lot of people get so scared and wrapped around the axle about the details of disaster recovery and incident response that they just don't do anything. It's like they almost freeze, where they're just like, well, we have the plan, so it's good. Like they were saying, we don't need to dust it off right now because it's good. The plan's there. But you can, I feel like as long as you're just making steps, you're doing something. It's better than doing nothing, one of the other things I think is important is ensure people are educated and aware of reporting and also disaster recovery and incident response. It doesn't really do any good if you assign people onto these teams for disaster recovery and incident response if they don't know that they're on those teams and they don't really know what they're supposed to be doing. And then same thing with also defining what an incident is. If your employees aren't aware of what an incident is and an incident occurs, how are you going to know to go into incident response? Last thing I'll say is continuous improvement. It's not something that you just build, throw it on the shelf, let it collect dust, and then just let it sit there for years. It's something that needs to be revisited, whether you need to put that into your, planning. You just need to have regular meetings and get those people together and make sure it's a priority in everybody's mind. So it's always improving.
Okay. I'll focus on kind of the security incident response because I think the DR, those pieces are covered really well by my two colleagues. So I guess for incident response, it takes a village. There's lots of ways organizations can do incident response. The classic way without a plan is something, some of you may be familiar with the panic run in circles or something to that effect. That's not really a good security incident response plan, but it is a choice that some organizations may want to make. From our perspective, we actually try to have a plan. We are building a plan for everything that we know at that moment, which I think in healthcare we know we're taking care of the diseases that we understand today. We are not necessarily, and we're trying to plan for tomorrow, and we do the best we can, but we're not going to hit that 100%, like what's going to come in the next day. So I think for the basic steps, and this is going to sound an awful lot like other incident response plans that have nothing to do with IT. So just go through it. Identification, categorization. What kind of incident is it? What kind of threat does it have? Is it ransomware? Is it spreading ick? Is it is something that's going to go through and make our systems not work as well? Is it data theft, data breach type threats? So what is it? And then kind of the next piece of that, containment. As part of security incident response planning, I think the most important thing, if you do nothing else, is to make sure you have your roles defined and you have a good communication plan. You do not need a junior engineer, well-intentioned, sending out an email to all of the organizations saying, yep, we've been breached. And there's actually the news stories and articles written on it of people that make early calls on it, send wide communications, or even worse, decide I'm going to do my security incident response and communication via email, not realizing their email system has already been taken over. And then wondering why, when they're chasing these bad guys through the network, they're always one step ahead of them. So there's a lot of things in just looking, understanding containment, understanding where that threat is, doing the response accordingly, and doing communication and having multiple ways you can communicate so that you're not using maybe the system that's been compromised to do the communication. And the more mature kind of folks that want to get in there and really take over a network, they're absolutely going to take over that email system because they know that that's how a lot of that communication is going to happen, and that's how they're going to get ahead of things. Not to scare anyone, this is just supposing. So the containment threat type, communication again, notification, and then a question about stopping the bleeding versus monitoring. So do I want to let the system keep running when I think it might be compromised? I'm going to show of hands. How many say, let the system keep running even though it might be compromised? How many want to raise your hand? Nobody? What if it's a heart monitor and it's working fine? And there's an operation going on right now that's critical. Oh, it's getting harder now, isn't it? What if it's the EHR and you're going to take out 10,000 users with no notification? It's working fine. What do I do? Those types of, these are hard decisions. If you can make those ahead of time, great. But if you can at least decide who makes that decision, who has the decision, what that role is, what criteria you do. So those types of thoughts and scenarios as you come up with, what do I do in this scenario? Because in the heat of the moment, everybody's gonna do the best they can, but boy, that's a very hard decision to make. And maybe that engineer, who's very smart, may not be the right one to make that decision. Maybe they wanna bump it up to clinical leadership. So these are just some things to think about. What are those roles? Who are the players? Do you need to involve legal? Do you have a compliance group that needs to be part of it? Who are my key IT leads? Do I let them all go to vacation in Bermuda at the same time?